Hello, and thank you everyone for joining. We are going to get started here in about 2-3 minutes. I'm going to give a couple extra minutes for people to roll in if they're running a little bit late, but thank you for attending. Thank you for your patience. We'll be getting started shortly. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin now. Thank you again to everybody attending. My name is Rob Quick. I'm the marketing manager here at the shop by FordDirect. Today we have got a special guest, Kevin McAdam from OneStep Secure IT, and he is going to be talking about the cybersecurity poverty line and how to elevate your dealership above it. If anybody has any questions, we also have got Hunter as a panelist from OneStep. So feel free to enter any questions that you have in the chat and they will be addressed promptly. But from here, I'm going to go ahead and let Kevin take the reins. Thank you, Kevin.
My pleasure. Thank you, Robert. And hello, everybody. And I'll clarify one thing. Hunter Greenwood is a guest of mine today. Hunter is from Hooks Lincoln in Fort Worth, Texas. So I know how much dealers like hearing from other dealers. So yes, I'm going to talk a whole bunch about peace of mind and the cybersecurity poverty line and what impact to national security all that has. And then Hunter, thank you for joining us, by the way. Say hi to everybody if you like. Is going to be online to talk about his experience with us and answer some questions along with me. Hunter, you there?
Yes, sir. How's everything going?
Hey, thanks for joining us again, Hunter. Appreciate it. Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? There is a lot to talk about. So as you guys can see on the screen, we're going to talk about elevating your dealership above the cybersecurity poverty line. And yes, I will explain what the heck that thing is. And we're going to talk about it from the perspective of protecting your dealership and your dealership's fight for the digital frontier. But we're also going to talk about it from the perspective of national security. Believe it or not, there's a lot going on there. So real quick, just to get into it, I have been doing this for, gosh, almost 25 years now, and really passionate about the auto market and love what you guys represent, love the American institution that it is, and really focused on helping to shield dealerships from the digital threats that we see today. I've been with OneStep for over 20 years. OneStep itself has been around over 40. Family business, just like a lot of you guys who are dealers as well, but very elevated in the cybersecurity space, lots of expertise. And listen, we're here to lead you through cyberspace's sprawl. So one thing about me, I may be displaying too much of my nerd side growing up, but I loved sci-fi growing up, still do. I loved reading about cyberspace back when it was just fiction, and it's amazing how much fiction becomes fact sometimes more than we like, right? So I'm going to try and keep this interesting and paint a picture for you that is all too real in many cases about cyberspace. Let's talk about it for a second. So if any of you have, like me, any love of science fiction, you may remember some great movies like Blade Runner, or if you even read prior to that, the precursor to Blade Runner, and all of the cyberpunk series. And then of course you've got The Matrix and all sorts of other more mainstream film type things that talk about cyberspace and paint it as this lawless sprawl, not a cloud, this neon lit war zone. And if you picture it in that perspective, start thinking about cyberspace as a space. Dealerships, if you think about the value that a dealership represents in money and data, man, dealerships process a lot of transactions, process a lot of dollars. So you become this glowing target in cyberspace for criminals. And those criminals are paying attention, man. In 2024, cybercrime cost dealers well over $1 billion. I don't need to push that fact too hard. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to talk about some facts. You guys know this all too well. And one breach definitely risks your business. There's no question about that. There also happens to be a security concern of that too. We'll talk more about that here, but it matters. Cyberspace is a lawless sprawl. Let's talk by covering a few misconceptions. So one of the misconceptions I hear a lot is we're too small to be hacked. And listen, foreign hackers, or domestic for that matter, they don't care about your size, they want your data. 15% of dealers are hit annually, 85% of them from phishing, and 84% of the customers walk when that happens. That's just facts. I didn't make them up. I can give you the stats if you want. The other interesting thing about dealerships is dealerships are a gateway into the US economy. Again, because of the supply chains that you're dealing with, the amount of personally identifiable information you're dealing with, how visible you are, dealerships are truly a gateway to the US economy. So the misconception number 2 that I want to talk about is, hey man, our IT team can handle it. Listen, IT teams keep systems running. That's their job, and they do it well. Cybersecurity needs specialists, and there's a gap out there. Just 17% of IT professionals surveyed on a cybersecurity quiz passed, the lowest across industries surveyed. Now, some of you may not believe me on that. I will send you the study. It was a fairly recent one. They did a cybersecurity quiz. They looked at banking, like financial services, healthcare, education, IT professionals. I think they were looking at developers as well. And believe it or not, the lowest scoring group on that cybersecurity quiz was IT professionals. And there's this thing, you may have heard of it, called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And basically what it says is that we all have an information bias. If we know a little bit about something, we often assume we know more than we do. And that information bias is one of the things that study talks about right there. So I'm not here to bash IT. They are absolutely essential. They keep things running. But you don't want to fight alone in the digital sprawl that we're talking about here in cyberspace. You want some specialists, some special forces that know what they're dealing with. Misconception number 3, compliance. I'm compliant, I'm fine. Compliance is just a checkbox. That's all I got to do. Listen, don't get me wrong. FTC, PCI DSS, if you miss them, you lose contracts, you face fines. I mean, there's problems. We got to do it. But compliance is far from a guarantee of security. In fact, this quote from CISO Online, compliance is not mere window dressing. True, it's there, it's necessary, but it's far from a guarantee of security. Compliance is your shield. It should not be looked at as a chore. It is required, and it's got to be followed. But there's more to it than just compliance, and we'll go into that here as well. All right. 4th misconception, we'd know it if we were hacked. I just, I remember talking to this one dealer. He said, I just throw all that stuff in the garbage and go write paper, which unfortunately a lot of people had to do last year, right? But I love that entrepreneurial spunk that a lot of dealers have. But the reality is that if you're living below the poverty line, the cybersecurity poverty line in cyberspace, a lot of times these breaches go unseen. In fact, on average, IBM found that hackers will linger 188 days before they get detected. They're like this silent thief. They're living in your lot. and they're looking around. Think about how much damage a criminal can do if they're observing your organization for almost a half a year, seeing how you pay bills, seeing how you pay employees, seeing how you receive funds, all that stuff. And that's called dwell time. That's the amount of time that a criminal can dwell in your environment before making a physical attack. And it has a lot to do with how bad that attack becomes. So we'll talk more about that later, but the idea that we'd know if we were hacked, unfortunately, many times it's way too late. And those invisible threats really demand some vigilant defense. The reality in 2025 is just like those cool movies from the past. There are hunters in the grid. And those rogue AIs, they're out there. They're crafting these phishing emails. They're nation states that are looking to hit supply chains. They did very effectively last year. And they're getting really good at this. There's this one story here it came out of Asia. It was a very big company, but there was a request to wire a bunch of money, not just one wire, but several wires totaling tens of millions of dollars. And the person who was asked to do it at this company was like, this doesn't sound right. So they got on these Zoom calls, conferences to validate. And it turns out in the multi-person video conference, everyone was fake. These were all deep fake AIs. These executives at this company had public personas. And so the hackers, the criminals were able to create these deep fakes using AI, convince the people to send the money, tens of millions of dollars. And that was a recent story. So the reality is dealers' data is a national security target. It just is. And we'll talk more about why that is. But we want to encourage you to act now, to take a stand on defense. So let's talk about the national security component to this a little bit as well. It sometimes hits a little different. And I actually got this, not from me, I didn't make this up. I was at the NADA event in New Orleans, and I know many of you were there this year. Many of you weren't able to get there. It was an interesting event, but I was listening to someone who came out of the White House who was talking about the cybersecurity poverty line and the role of auto dealers in America's defense. And the reality is that nation states in particular, they're looking to undermine the confidence in the American way of life. And auto dealers are very visible. I mean, you can go to big ones, like on the screen here, you've got 2021, you've got the Colonial Pipeline hack. I mean, that disrupted US fuel. That's like national infrastructure, that's important. But if you're just looking to undermine people's confidence in the American way of life, dealers are very visible. I mean, if you think about commercials are, I think it's probably drug companies and then dealers. It's right around there, right? It's very, very visible. We all have to get our cars. We all love getting our cars. We have to get them serviced. It's just a very visible piece of society. Also, there's a tremendous amount of personal information there, credit information, financial information. And as I said earlier, a lot of money runs through dealers. It's not about margin, it's about top-end money. Those are high-value targets for a nation state who wants to undermine confidence in the American way of life. And in many cases, that's the case. So yes, you got to protect your dealership for your own sake, but also there's a component here to doing our part to protect the nation as well. So let's talk about what an MSSP is. And we're going to start talking about the defense crew here, the positive guys that are running around in cyberspace to help you out. We've all probably heard of an MSP. That's a managed services provider. That's your IT guy. We've all had them. They've been around for decades, right? There are something like 5,000 companies in the country that provide managed services, managed MSP services. The MSSP is someone who specializes in security. And it takes a specialization. IT's job is to keep things running. Keep it running. Security's job is to keep it safe. But there's a workforce gap here. There's currently a workforce gap of cybersecurity specialists of 3.4 million individuals. My son happened to graduate with a degree in cybersecurity a couple of years ago. There were only 2 colleges at the time offering a degree in cybersecurity. Only 2 in the whole country. There are more now, but the average IT person has something like 40 or 50 hours of specialized security training, and for some of those, that was 10 years ago. Our team has to go through that much continuing education every year just to maintain certification on things. So what that MSSP does is they fortify your little piece of cyberspace. So if, again, you think about cyberspace, it's this neon landscape and your dealership burning bright because of all the data you got, all the revenue you're running, all the transactions. Your MSSP is your fortification. They're your defense in cyberspace. A little bit more on this. IT runs things, MSSPs defend things. IT, they look at their effectiveness as system uptime. I gotta keep things running. If stuff stops working, you call your IT. The MSSP considers their success in threat hunting. How many threats did I neutralize? How much protection was I able to deliver? And there is a completely next generation of tools out there. The AI revolution has been amazing. Many of you are probably fighting it. Many of you have embraced it. I fought it for a long time. I started embracing it about a year ago, and oh my gosh, is it crazy. But these next generation tools in cybersecurity, they have a big impact. You can see here from IBM again, the biggest impact AI can have is in reducing the cost of a breach because of that dwell time that I talked about earlier, because they can identify and neutralize threats before they become a big problem. They're saying in this study, reduce the cost by an average of $2.22 million. Those specialists can outsmart the AI-driven attacks of the enemy. That's what we can do. They're the guardians of the grid, to stick with the theme. MSSPs are out there blocking foreign threats all the time. I mean, if you look at briefings from MSSPs and the people who support that, CISA is a great, they're all talking about foreign threats. They're talking about protecting data and protecting the country. That is the adversary that in many cases we're up against right now. The nation state attacks are absolutely on the rise. China is leading in zero-day and edge device attacks. What are zero-day? Zero-day means no one's ever seen it before. So your antivirus, your firewall, your perimeter defenses, and your endpoint defenses, by definition, they've never seen a zero-day, so they can't defend against it. Edge devices are the other things in the business. How many of you have security cameras? Are they connected to the internet? Absolutely, they are. All those edge devices that are not endpoints and not firewalls, like security cameras, any of the Internet of Things out there, shoot, it could be your thermostat. All of those connected softwares that are tying into your DMS through your supply chain or your websites, all of those edge devices, that's where China's exploiting because the strength is not there in the security infrastructure. So by strengthening your dealership security, believe it or not, you're fighting those nation states. You're strengthening America. So let's get into this cybersecurity poverty line for a second. What the heck is this thing? Believe it or not, 2011, there's my source down at the bottom of this slide here, but that's when it started, when it got defined. What it is just what it sounds like. It's a poverty line where if you're below the poverty line, the cybersecurity poverty line, again, think of cyberspace as a space. If you're below the line, you've got weak tools, no plans, and you're vulnerable to foreign hacks or domestic hacks. Doesn't matter. If you're above the line, you've got AI defenses, you've got pros that are searching for this stuff, and you're resilient. And if you just draw the parallel to physical property and digital property, if you opened up your dealership in a bad part of town, if your lot is in a bad part of town, you know it. You can see what's going on around the corner. You can see what's going on the streets. Crime is visible. You can see it. Also, if you put yourself in a good part of town, if you put yourself in a gated community, you can see it. It just looks different. Cyberspace is the same. And so what you got to do is put yourself in a gated community. And what criminals do in that case is they'll just go find easier targets. There's bars on the window and barbed wire on the fence. They'll go find someone who doesn't have that. And that's what we're talking about here, getting you above the poverty line so that you're not as easy a target. They'll go find somebody else. Below the line, you're exposed in the sprawl. You've got no security staff or less security staff, weak endpoints or basic protections, not a lot of training going on. And, you know, talking frankly, the CDK breach fed foreign actors. Black Suit is, this is from Reuters, not from me. I had to make sure I was very, very, very clean on my sources on this one, but that is a foreign adversary group. And that is what was behind the CDK breach. And it fed them a tremendous amount of information. Where are they going to go next? And that's what you got to start thinking about. So below the line, you're a weak link. Get above the line is the message of the day. Now I want to talk about technology adoption curve a little bit as well. And what do I mean by elite security and modern tools? All technology goes through a bell curve of adoption. It could have been the refrigerator. There's a funny story back in the day about refrigerator salesman about people doing ice boxes, and maybe someday on another call I'll get into that one a little bit. But all technology goes through a bell curve of adoption, where you have early adopters and then everybody gets it, and then it kind of weans off, and then the last people are getting it. When you look at tools that are used commonly out there like endpoint and perimeter defenses, those have been around for decades. Those are on the tail end or the downswing of the adoption curve of technology, and they're not really any match for the rogue AI and modern defense or modern attacks that are being deployed. But by putting yourself on the front end of that curve, you can combat that stuff. This takes a C-level focus. This is not, let me delegate it to my ops guy. This takes a C-level focus, and we have to do the work, just a focus. And then using these AI-driven tools like XDR, SIM, SOAR, that's expanded endpoint detection, that's security information and endpoint management, that's security orchestration, automation response. This is like some fancy stuff in here, but they are possible. They're easy. They're deployable with the right talent and with an MSSP. And those elite defenses are what protect your business today, and of course, obviously protect the nation as well by doing that. So there's a few keys to protection that I want to talk about here to shield your digital lot. If you're in a bad part of town, you're going to put up security cameras, you might have guards, you have fences, you might have barbed wire, you've got defenses, right? You got to shield your digital lot as well. So first off, know your role. It's more than just IT. It is definitely a national security impetus right now, but it's also just more than IT. Have a role to play, have the right people involved. Prepping for threats, there's a framework called Zero Trust. Zero Trust is a specific framework. A security professional knows what it is, but it basically means I'm not trusting anything. I'm only going to allow certain things to work within the environment. And that brings you above that cybersecurity poverty line. Have incident plans, practice them. I was on a webinar last year with the ex-CISO of the CIA, and he told a funny story about someone who had been hacked, they'd been ransomed, and he asked them, they brought him in to help, and he said, so where's your incident response plan? And told him, well, it's on the server, sir. Obviously, they had been ransomed. They couldn't get the incident response plan. It has to be real. It has to be useful in the business. There are these things called tabletop exercises that you run through where you practice this stuff. And this is starting to become a real thing, a real impact. Most recently, I heard that up to 40% of cyber liability insurance claims are getting denied because of a lack of proof of these tabletop exercises or these proof of practice of these incident plans. So we've got to do some prep. And then we've got to use some modern tools as well. We got to stop these foreign hacks before they hit. Reduce that dwell time. If you can reduce that dwell time from 188 days to a day or a few hours, if you can find it within a few hours, hey, this system's been breached, this person got phished, great. At that point, it's minimized. I may have to reformat a computer or redo someone's passwords. That's an IT problem. Security found it, but it's easy for IT to fix. You wait 120 days, and all of a sudden, you know, they hit you with a ransom or they do wire fraud for a few $100,000. We've got a much bigger problem on our hands, and it's a lot harder to stop it at that point. And that touches on why IT isn't enough. IT's job is to provide infrastructure. If you think about in cyberspace, infrastructure, connectivity, make sure people can do their job. That's like ensuring the lot has power, water, and utilities. It's essential. You can't operate without them, but it doesn't secure it. It doesn't secure it in a bad part of town. And that's where you bring in specialists. Specialists will secure your lot from criminals. Specialists are your cyber edge in cyberspace as well. So when it comes to prepping for a breach, I hope I'm not scaring everybody too much, but the reality is in many cases, something will happen at some point. Last year, we saw that one breach from CDK over $1 billion. We know this is happening. They are inevitable. So it does take planning to minimize the damage, reduce the dwell time. There's a company that we work with, and one of the senior specialists there and the executives talks about he's a red teamer. If you hear the term red team, blue team, what does that mean? It's the attackers or the defenders in the cyber crime world. The attackers and the defenders, the cybersecurity world. But he talks about how if we can identify that thing and handle it in a few hours, like I said, it becomes an IT issue. If you let it go, it becomes a career-ending issue or a business-ending issue. And so If we plan for it and minimize the damage and have modern tools to prevent against it, then we reduce the dwell time and it becomes just a thing that happens that we deal with, not something that, you know, can take the business out or take you down for weeks, stuff like that. And of course, there's the fact that 84% of consumers will avoid a dealership after a breach. That's just been done by survey. There's a positive side of that too, which we're going to get into here in a second. Let's talk about AI. No talk about technology would be complete today without talking about AI with it. So listen, there's good AI and there's bad AI. The good AI is there and it can be deployed, it can detect, it can predict, it can protect. There's also bad AI. There are foreign powers, there are foreign hackers, there are domestic hackers. They're doing phishing, they're doing deep fakes, they're probing defenses, they're scouring cyberspace, looking for those bright spots, which are, in many cases, dealerships are bright spots because of all the revenue, as I mentioned before, and all the data and all the transactions. And a successful breach today it's a lot less about how good the hacker is. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still really good ones and not so good ones, but it's less about those skills, but more about the skills of the AIs that they can deploy. You can pay a little bit of money if you were of the mind to do so for an AI that you can go and make a tremendous amount of money as a criminal in cyberspace these days. Now, hopefully that's not the life path that many people want to go on, but it is the unfortunate truth that it just takes a little bit of money to buy and deploy these tools, and there's a tremendous return on investment for the criminals because of the power of the AI being so good now. So is AI an ally or an enemy? It's neither. It's just a tool, but you have to deploy it. If the bad guys are deploying it, then you've got to deploy it as well. Let's talk about the government a little bit. I know it's Auto Dealer's favorite topic. I've learned this over the years, but there is some support for you. There's CISA, great organization. They have a lot of free tools. They will aid dealers in preventing against this if you want to spend the time or put the resources yourself into learning some of this stuff. There are some tools to help kind of turn this into a business positive for you as well. Consumers are definitely paying attention to this stuff, and they are looking at businesses that protect their data. Cyber Essentials is a badge that has gotten some global attention that you can get as a business. Say, hey, I'm a Cyber Essentials badge, or you can always go to the gold standard, which is the ISO 27001, which is the gold standard globally for a business that is applying the standards to protect their data and their customers. Cyber Essentials customers, that they will make the claim that up to 92% reduction in insurance claims goes along with the Cyber Essentials badge. There's some discussion for other types of badges here, but I mean, you know, why not post that up on the website? Why not put that front and center in the showroom? It says, listen, we are ISO 27001. We protect your data. Turn this into a positive, because it is. Consumers are getting tired of it. I mean, none of us like it. We've all gotten shoot, the federal government breached all of our information at the end of last year, all of our social security numbers, everything. And it's just like, come on, enough is enough. But nobody wants to send out that letter to the customers notifying them of a breach. But instead of taking the reactionary approach, let's make it a positive. Let's put that badge up there. Of course, you've got the FTC and other compliances. Those are key, got to do those. This is a unsponsored plug here, but we love working with Comply Auto. They make this a breeze. If anyone from Comply Auto is on here, listen to you, there you go, unsponsored plug. But yeah, you got to get the compliance out of the way. That's necessary. But hopefully you get the message here that there's a lot more on top of that, and just a mindset of how to approach this that's also different. And of course, there is the national security component to it here. A breach of your data, believe it or not, risks the American digital ecosystem. I mean, think about how many dealerships were affected by CDK's breach. That is a supply chain attack that took 15,000 dealerships down, some of them for weeks. You know, customers couldn't buy cars, couldn't get cars, couldn't service cars, couldn't get them out. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that happened that show the kind of ripple effects that kind of stuff can happen. So protect your dealership, do your part. The Colonial Pipeline is another one that shows the massive ripple effects that go in there. So by securing your dealership, we all do our part to secure the nation from these foreign threats as well. So this is us in the shop. We are super proud and excited partners of FordDirect in the shop. You can scan that QR code here, and you can get all sorts of services about us, including this 27-point free network inspection. This is something that FordDirect asked us to do. It's something we normally charge a few $1,000s for. but we will do it for free for anyone who wants it. Come through the shop here. And I want to introduce here, I want to switch gears here a little bit because Hunter Greenwood from Hooks Lincoln found us through the shop. I'm going to go ahead and switch here. Let me see, how do I switch this? I haven't used go to webinar in so long. Hunter, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. I can't see you. I don't know if anybody can see us, but I'm gonna try again. Let me see here. Show all webcams. Oh, there we go. Great. Hunter, anyway, thank you for joining us. So you guys found us through the shop, and I'd love it if you would share with the dealers that are on today a little bit about your experience. What were you guys looking for? Why'd you look on the shop? And you know, maybe just kind of give us an intro of the background that put us together.
Sure. So we started our relationship maybe, I guess it'll be a year at the end of the summer, Labor Day-ish. We started having troubles with our old IT firm, kind of weird billing / we didn't really trust that we were fully secure. It's one of those that if you have to, even in this sphere, if you have to second guess it all, it's kind of very concerning. So we finally started reaching out. Courtney Douglas with the shop actually recommended y'all. She's great. So it's one of those, we called y'all up. We had you and about 3 other firms that weren't, the first one we went to was local. You know, everybody wants a local IT firm, this, that, and the other. And then we kind of started sitting down.
And you guys are in Fort Worth, just to fill that local gap in. You guys are in Fort Worth, right now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we kind of started looking around. After meeting with y'all, it's kind of the big picture that y'all offer is completely different than what we had and what we've seen other firms have. It's one of those that in the trust level we have now built up in the last 8 months or so on. It's something we don't go completely hands off on, but we trust a lot of y'all's intentionalities and just progress that we've made from leaving in less than a year.
Great. Well, we appreciate that trust that you've put in us, and that's what we're here for. Definitely here, and you know, I think it speaks to it. You don't have to necessarily have all the expertise as a dealership. In fact, it'd be good for everybody here. Tell us a little bit about your dealership.
All right, so we're a family-owned store. We've been doing business for about 40-something years now. I think it's 43 or so. We're very small, very lean staff, kind of. I mean, we have 5 sales guys and 2 service advisors. So we run a pretty small ship around here. And it's one of those that it ends up being me, Dad, or somebody else that's wearing all these different hats, you know, between the marketing or this IT, the compliance, and this, that, and the other. So we really had to look for somebody we could actually partner with wholeheartedly and had to have a one-on-one trust basis and just the openness too in these conversations. This is very similar to like your quarterly briefing that we have with OneStep every quarter too. You hear about this is where we're at, and you hear about units that are aging on these desktops and stuff like that. And it's just a whole round picture is awesome. It really is.
That's great. Yeah, and I know a lot of dealerships do the same thing. A lot of people wear a lot of hats, and I guess it would have been maybe you were going to be the white hat hacker if you didn't find somebody who knew what they were doing, right? That was going to be your Well, that's what we're really encouraging is like it takes an expertise now. My son graduated with a 4-year degree in cybersecurity, and he filled that 4-year degree. So to think that you can pick this up on the side by watching a few YouTube videos and do a couple of AI searches is it's a recipe for disaster. So, and that's, I think, the proof in the pudding here is that put your trust in expertise that can actually go out there and protect the lot. And you know, anything else you want to share about your experience?
Well, there's a whole other aspect to that conversation piece too, is the fact that I have zero hesitance on asking y'all any hard-hitting questions either, because if there is an issue, it's going to get resolved. Compared to my previous IT firm, it's one of those I would kind of don't even want to ask because you don't know, you know, then you have to file with them to get a plan on how to fix this issue, or how to do this, or how to do that. I mean, you know, the roadmaps y'all built out, great, you know, and it's not just we'll get you up and running and then y'all go hands off. I mean, everything's so progressive and it's very proactive relative to reactive cybersecurity. I can't recommend y'all more.
I really appreciate that, and it speaks to an emphasis that I made in the presentation, and something that I think you brought it up from a different point of view here, is that traditional IT has been set it and forget it. I mean, that is traditional IT, where we'll come in, we'll set the systems up, we'll put the perimeter defenses on, we'll set up the firewall, we'll put the endpoint detection on the computers, we'll set it up, and then it's supposed to automatically update, and no one's watching. And that's where every single breach that happens in a business, every single one, involves a failure of the perimeter or the endpoint. It's a thing. So it takes that vigilance and a whole new level of looking at things. Now, I won't go into the details of your environment, but you have layers of defense that are on top of that, that should that happen through a 0-day, which, like I said earlier, China is leading in these 0-day attacks, it's still not gonna run. You have a zero trust environment in your dealership now. And, we work with really big dealerships, and we work with, really small ones, and we work with family-owned ones that have been around for 40 years, and we work with ones that have, been a conglomeration of acquisitions, and it doesn't matter. The same strategies can be applied. It doesn't matter how smart. That's one of the first things I saw. I'm not a target. So I appreciate you sharing all of that in terms of your experience with us. If there's anything you would recommend to a dealer who's looking at this today and considering how to approach this cybersecurity problem, what would you recommend?
It's kind of one of those, it's a hard-hitting question you really don't want to start digging into. Because, once you don't know how, if you're super far behind, or you don't know if you're super far, and everything's ready to go. So, I guess just the openness of ripping the Band-Aid off and getting started. Nobody wants to have these conversations. Nobody wants to talk about the risks that we may be leaving, the store cracked open somewhere over here. But it really is just, it's just a game on just get started, and everything moves so much smoother, and you sleep better at night knowing that there's a lot less of a risk than what we previously had.
Yeah, I think kicking the can down the road is not necessarily a good call on this topic anymore. Might have been a couple 3 years ago, but I think if last year wasn't proof enough that auto dealers need to take this seriously now, it's I don't know what would be. Cool. Well, thank you for that. Can you stick around in case any of the dealers have questions on here? Okay, great. Let me go back and show one other thing here on. Okay, so back to the shop. You can scan that QR code. That'll get you into our area on the shop. If you want to do that, again, anyone on here, you can do that 27-point free try before you buy type of an option. But we have a lot of other security services that we have there. If you want to learn more about Hunter and Hooks Lincoln and their experience, we have that option here as well. There's a QR code. I'll leave it on there for a minute. You can download and learn more about that. And other than that, we're here to help. Whether it's just asking a few questions of us and having a quick dialogue, and maybe setting up a session for some time in the future, or getting down and dirty. Hunter, I know we had to move fast with you guys. We put 2 guys on a plane within, I don't know, a week or something like that. So we can do them both.
Yeah, that was another incredible aspect to it too, because we kind of got in the pickle with the old IT firm where this license is about to be up, and it's one of those we couldn't drag our feet, and they were truly out here the next week, and we were fully installed in 2.5 weeks. It was something super fast from sign of the date to, oh, we have one more day on this, with this server. It's somehow we pulled it off. It was great.
Yeah, I remember it was a dicey timeline, but yeah, we sometimes you just got to make it go right, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, like I said, anybody on the line, we'll just have a conversation. That's my direct line. I'm happy to talk to you directly. Hit us up through the shop, or we can have a conversation and dive right in, or have a conversation and just talk. So we're there. We're here to answer some questions too. So Robert, as the organizer, I want to see if you're still there and see if you had any questions from crews that we can answer or field while we're here.
I am not seeing any questions that have come through so far.
Okay, great. Well, that's because we did such a great presentation. How could you have questions on that, Hunter, this is the first time you've seen the cyber sprawl concept. What do you think? You like it?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. There's not much, and just to speak on the personalization level that y'all offered too, is the fact that, there's really is, stuff that I have mundane ABC type questions that I feel like even, you submit the ticket, or we call you or call Tim or somebody, and it's explained thoroughly, but without judgment on why, you understand I have this handled, why are you calling and asking? It's very, very explained extremely well. I've had truly nothing but great things to say.
Cool, great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and that's kind of my job, trying to take some of this hard, complex stuff and turn it into something that we can visually think with. So, and it gets me a chance to exercise my inner sci-fi nerd a little bit. So I love it. I appreciate you being on, Hunter. Robert and FordDirect, thank you for allowing us to speak, and for everybody attending, thank you guys very much. Hope we have a chance to talk to you all in the future.
Thank you everyone for attending.
Awesome, thanks, Kevin.
Great, thanks guys. Bye now.